National Film Board of Canada presents Perspective, a Canadian view of Canada, its people, and the world in which they live.
This week, The Barrier, Part 1. The first of two stories on the relationship between the worker and the boss, by George Salverson.
We will call this the Universal Paper Company. There is no such company to our knowledge. We could have chosen any industry. For this is a story of relationships between the people who build the success of such an industry and about a point of failure in those relationships. Specifically, this is the story of two men who tried to strip aside a silent barrier, a wall of attitudes, traditions, defenses that blocked the communication of thought and ideas. Two men who worked together and yet lived in separate worlds. One was W.F. Fred Montgomery. He wanted to break down the barrier, which lay between himself and the man who worked under him. A wall of silence that was hard to define and even harder to break through. The man on the other side of this wall was Nick Taylor, a self-made man at the end of his career. At the last moment, he tried to reach upward through that barrier.
Good morning, sir.
Never mind the sir.
All right, Nick.
This will be your office tomorrow. Sit down. Get used to it.
Imagine you're pretty happy. No more problems.
No. No problems.
Just buy a chicken farm and relax.
Yeah. Me and the wife and the chickens.
Leaving all your worries to me, eh?
What have you got to be worried about? You're on the way up. You'll do all right.
It's a big job. You won't be an easy man to live up to.
Huh.
Nick, I wasn't just saying that to...
You always know the right things to say, Frank. You've got nothing to worry about.
I mean it. If you have any last-minute advice you could give me, well...
Ah, that's what I want to hear. Give me that wonderful feeling. A wise old bull in the woods.
This won't be an easy transition. You're popular with the men.
Because I worked every one of them jobs down there? Because I never got away from being one of them?
Their respect for you is enormous.
You're afraid they won't respect your diploma, eh?
I don't know,
Don't worry about it. You worked those jobs, too. Sure, they knew you were just passing through an assignment. But you've got the important things.
Well, thanks.
You've got background, kid. You can sit in the commissary and Fred Montgomery will include you in while he chatters about his country plays, his skating parties, his jags, and his caddies. And you always know what to tell him.
What?
Tell him nothing, just like me. Only it probably won't bother you as much.
I don't get you. I've tried to do a good job.
Sure, Frank, sure you have. You'll do a good job in college. And you'll be a dandy superintendent. There's my diploma. We get these smart kids working around here and finding out, like you found out, that you don't learn everything in school. I'd make them bring me their diplomas. I'd hang them up right here. smart engineers would come around and start to argue with me, I'd point to them diplomas. I'd say, they all work for me.
Touché.
I guess I'm in a funny mood today. Got an urge to speak my mind. Want to know what I think of you?
What?
I like you. I'm proud of you. Now, come on, let's get to work. Any problems?
One of the tower bosses wanted to see you.
Oh? Who?
Mike Bronsky. I told him you'd be busy for a while.
Oh, you did, eh? Where is he?
He went back down to the floor.
Mm-hmm. What do you want?
I didn't ask.
You'll get along. Tomorrow you'll have pretty pictures in here, just like in Montgomery's office. And secretaries barring the door.
Nick, I would like to talk to you. It's about this feller, this Frank Traveler.
What about him?
He asked me about that #1 machine.
Old #1, man.
Sure. I give him all the facts. He say thanks. I say no good to tear out that wet end. That's no the trouble. He's no listen. He gonna tear out that wet end.
History repeats.
Huh?
I know that #1 machine made a superintendent out of me. Now it's in Frank Traveler's hands. And in Fred Montgomery's.
Huh, that Montgomery. Nick, we old friends, you and me. We was tower boss together in old days, huh?
What about Montgomery?
He was bum when he have your job. Now worse bum. Nick, why you retire now? You no ready for pension? It's that Montgomery, huh? He push you out.
Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
No? Well, I know what I'm talking. What Montgomery do now? He's vice president, huh?
Well, what?
Spies.
What do you mean, spies?
You see him, this fella who's come snooping around, huh? Is that Montgomery sent him. No matter you do good job now, he breathe down your neck.
Bennett?
Huh?
He's just a methods man. Stopwatch engineer.
Yeah? Well, he asked plenty questions for stopwatchers. All the guys know he spy for Montgomery.
Oh, you're all nuts. You just do your job and forget about it.
Okay, Nick. You fix, huh?
You just do what you're told. Just keep your nose clean, Mike.
And trusting you can meet this at your earliest, etc., yours, etc., of the so-and-so and so-and-so. Have you got all that, Madge?
Yes, Mr. Montgomery.
I know, of course you have, but I always ask, don't I?
Yes, Mr. Montgomery.
Madge, you've been with me a long time, and I always thought I'd lose you.
Lose me?
Well, you know, marriage.
No luck yet.
Don't understand it.
Too fussy, I suppose. Oh, the Durable Hose Company phoned.
Oh, blast the Durable Hose Company. They can't supply the new plant?
They're hedging. Well, Mr. Ellison will be outside now.
Sales to needle me about production. Everybody's outside. Engineering wanting $3 million for the new plant instead of $2 million. Sales hounding me because production is down. Papers tearing on the #1 machine. Madge, we shouldn't have got ourselves promoted.
You always make out.
I have a man I can trust going around trying to find out just what I do need to know here. People are calling him a spy.
Nonsense.
Madge, What do you suppose Nick Taylor thinks about?
Nick Taylor? How should I know what he thinks?
He knows what's going on down there, but he comes in here and just says, yup, 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 and that's all.
Seems too bad the company should lose Mr. Taylor so soon.
Yes, I suppose it does.
Mr. Ellison will be waiting.
Send him in. Tell him to bring his little dagger. Oh, Madge, keep everybody else away this morning. I need a little time to think.
Yes, Mr. Montgomery. Oh, Mr. Ellison, won't you go right in, please?
Madge, I want to see the boss.
Mr. Montgomery's in conference.
That sounds familiar.
Dick Ellison of sales is with him.
And the dragon's at the door.
I'll let him know you're here.
You're young and pretty, Madge.
Nick, please.
It's 15 years since I first said that to the dragon at the door.
If you care to wait, I'll tell Mr. Montgomery you're here.
There was a dragon before your time who said that.
Oh?
I was full of beans, young and eager. Real paper man. There was some trouble on the #1 machine. He asked me for some dope on it. I thought, this is it. Brain, skill, initiative, that gets you ahead. I knew the trouble. So I gave him the production figures, condition, number of breakdowns, had it all figured out what was wrong. Now what happened? He didn't give me a chance to talk. He told me what was wrong. All fixed up with a bunch of engineers from head office. They made the recommendations. I got drunk. Nobody listened to Nick Taylor.
Oh, Nick, they did in the long run.
Nuts, they did. I learned from #1 machine how to become a superintendent. Just say yes in the right places. Now, I got nothing to lose.
Hello, Nick. Here you're leaving us.
Yep.
Firm's gonna miss you.
Yep. Go ahead, buzz him.
Oh, Nick, you're all worked up because it's your last day.
Buzz him. Every time before, my tongue got stuck in my throat. I'd have something important to say, and he'd do all the talking. This time it's different. Buzz him.
Yes, indeed. It's been a long time, Nick, a long time. Sit down, Nick, sit down. We're going to miss you badly, Nick.
Well, thanks, Fred. But I wanted to talk to you.
Of course, we've had a long association. Looking forward to a life of ease on that chicken farm?
Oh, sure. But...
Well, I suppose we'll have to learn to get along without you. One fortunate thing, though. Now your wife will have you all to herself.
Fred, never mind that stuff.
Something wrong, Nick?
Remember we once had some trouble on that #1 machine?
Oh, think nothing of it. We always have trouble there. Young Traveler has it well in hand.
Oh, he has?
Yes, clever young man, that. Good training.
Yeah.
He mentioned to me this morning, and when I suggested that we have the engineers from head office in, he said he'd tell him the problem. Make you feel better, Nick? Knowing that you leave the job in competent hands?
But 5 years before retirement age, Fred, I kind of felt...
Oh, you deserve it, Nick. Nobody deserves a break more than you do. Excuse me. What is it, Madge? Oh. I see. Thanks. Your wife is in your office, Nick.
My wife?
Sounds important. Nick. Let's have lunch together.
Lunch?
We've worked together a great many years. I think perhaps we could have a little talk.
What a drab office. Nothing graceful here at all. Why do you keep this thing? I'm sure Mr. Montgomery's office isn't like this.
That's a souvenir of my shop days.
Look at you, in your shirt sleeves, the superintendent. No wonder you never got anywhere.
What'd you come here for, Judith?
It was the same with this doctor.
Judith, you haven't got cancer.
Why won't you believe me?
The doctor told you.
But I should know. I was a nurse before I married you.
Before you threw yourself away?
What'll I do now? They won't help me.
Judith, you'll live to be 100.
You hope not.
I do hope it. You'll bury me. They're burying me here today.
What a thing to say.
And it's true, Judith. They're getting rid of me.
Nick, it's not like you to talk this way.
And I don't blame you for feeling the way you do. I guess I'm not the husband you married. And don't worry about that cancer, baby. You'll bury me yet. And you'll marry some pensioner with an Oxford accent.
Nick, you'll be home tonight. Perhaps we could talk. Now that you're retiring, about doing something with our lives.
You really feel that way?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, Judith. I'll be home. But now I've got to have lunch with Fred Montgomery.
Mr. Montgomery, how nice. Oh, that's lovely. Now, you go right ahead, dear. And when you come home tonight, be sure to tell me all about it.
Yep.
Such a wonderful man, Mr. Montgomery.
Yep.
Madge, Nick will be here in a minute. You might as well go out to lunch.
Yes, I'll just finish this.
That all you eat, Nick?
Well, I'm having lunch later with a wonderful man. He can wait on me for once.
Say, Nick, why don't you and me celebrate, huh? Mike buy the beer.
Celebrate what?
Celebrate you free man. And me? Today I tell off this Frank Traveler. I say, you don't know this #1 machine. I tell him good.
Mike,
Huh?
you've been a tower boss for a long time. I hope you'll last till your pension.
What do you mean?
Did he listen to you?
Sure. What do you think?
You remind me of our supervisory meetings. Everyone would get together, one big happy family, solve all our problems. I remember the last one. President stayed 15 minutes. Introduced us to the engineer from main office. Fred Montgomery disappeared after the first session. Then, after the conference was over, Bright Boy just flipped over the last of his sheets, and there, in a pretty diagram, the whole conference was summed up for us. All cooked up nice and artistic. Before any one of us could open our yaps.
I don't get it, Nick. What you mad about?
That's what I like about you, Mike. I can talk to you. Just remember, when you talk, they may listen, but they won't hear. Tell them what they want to hear and collect your pension.
You're supposed to be meeting Mr. Montgomery.
Sure. He's gone social after 20 years. He can wait a sociable minute. Give him time to think of that speech he's going to make tomorrow night at the farewell banquet, when he writes me off with a gold watch.
You are feeling badly.
No. I'm looking forward to them chickens.
You coming over tonight? I don't want you to be lonely. Not tonight.
Judith was in. Talked about a new life.
Don't you think you better keep your appointment?
In this way, he won't have to ask me to wait.
Nick, he's been terribly busy and worried. He really would like to talk to you, but not as the boss. If you'd help him.
Help him? I'm the one who never gets a word out.
After all, Frank Traveler doesn't know how to get along with the men the way you do.
He knows how to get along with the right men. Something he learned in college, I guess. For me, I went to a different school. I listened to all that eyewash they dish out to kids.
Eyewash?
Work hard, be diligent, get ahead. Hard work gets you there, and ideas. Be independent, beholden to no one. So I worked at the mill, became a great paperman. Get a job anywhere. What a dreamer. I was saved by 3 slaps in the kisser that made me a self-made man.
What 3 slaps?
Oh, never mind. I'm off my nut today. Maybe the last day is the day to say every stupid thing you think. And the master waits. Oh, about tonight. I'd better go home.
Try a little of the red pepper, Nick.
Oh.
Not too much. It's really hot.
Yep.
I'm rather fond of this stuff myself. Proletarian taste, I guess.
Oh?
That's what my wife used to say. Seems only yesterday. You were a bright young lad down at the mill, a tower boss.
Yep. You are no graybeard either, Fred.
You're right. Odd, I always felt so much older. But of course you're older. You're retiring.
Yep. Fred, remember once I wanted to talk to you? About that number 1 machine?
You mean what we were discussing this morning?
No, when I was tower boss. I had a whole lot of ideas. Then the machine broke down and... You don't remember nothing about it?
No.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Yes. I always remember you as a man with ideas, even then, Nick.
Yep. Hey, this pepper is hot, all right.
Yes.
Sure is.
We're going to have another course on supervisory training. Everybody from the president down. We're going to get the entire supervisory staff together and work out some of our problems.
One big happy family, eh?
Well, something like that. Like to give me any ideas, Nick?
Sure. Get yourself a bright young expert from main office with all the problems on big sheets of paper. When the conference is over...
Yes.
I got no ideas. This pepper is too darn hot.
Better wash it down with a little water.
You're home.
Sit down. Pour you a drink.
You know I don't drink.
And watch me.
Well, what did Mr. Montgomery say?
That smooth, high and mighty, holier than thou. He's got spies in now. He's going to have another conference of supervisors.
Nick, are you serious about taking a chicken farm?
You want to come along?
I think so.
Nuts. I'm not interested in a chicken farm. I'm all through.
No, you're not. Nick, let's make plans.
All right.
Only I wish you wouldn't drink like that, so fast.
Let's make plans, eh? On how to wear my hat and coat, how to talk, how to drink, how to imitate your idol, Montgomery. I listened to all that before we were married.
If only you had listened.
I've done enough listening in my lifetime.
We could have done so much better if you tried.
I listened to all the important things. When you got your fancy sofa and your own Buick and your $1 million kitchens.
You're drinking too much. And you know my health. I can't stand it.
Then don't.
Where are you going?
I'm going to give you some peace and quiet.
That #1 machine, that was the first one.
The first what?
Slap.
Oh, the 3 slaps. What do you mean, 3 slaps?
I lived with that machine for 20 years, but they never gave me a chance to tell them what was wrong. They told me. I began to get the idea, so I agreed. You're so right, boss.
What was the second slap?
I was an expert paperman, full of confidence. Used to sit in the commissary with Fred Montgomery and some of the guys from head office, all papermen together. Only we weren't. They'd include me out when they talked about their Cadillacs and their country homes. I got the idea again. Skill ain't enough, so I quit relying on skill.
And it's lucky you already had it.
I couldn't tell Judith this any more than I could tell Montgomery. You know what he said at lunch? Supervisory meetings. That was the third thing. Get us all together, work out all our problems. The president stayed 10 minutes to introduce the smart young engineer. Montgomery stayed for 1 meeting. At the last session, the engineer shows us a big sheet all made up by some artist before the meeting began. They showed us our conclusions before we came to them. I got the idea. They tell you. You say, yeah, you're right. Well, tomorrow they're going to give me a banquet. Goodbye, you good and faithful servant. Loyal, devoted, true, and honest dog. Madge! I was an honest, ambitious young guy with guts. What happened to me?
Nick, what is it?
Montgomery. For 20 years, I never said what I wanted to say. I didn't fight back. I never lied to him. But I never told him the truth.
Nick Taylor, self-made man. At the last moment, he tried to reach upward through a barrier and failed. Next week, Perspective will tell the other side of this story, to see what happened that day above the barrier, when this man tried to reach down.
This week's Perspective was directed by Tom Farley. Written by George Salverson. Photography Donald Wilder. Sound recording Claude Pelletier. Editor Tony Lower. Production assistant Blanche Markle. Location manager Hugh O'Connor. Sound editor Brian Keene. Special sound Joan Edward. Perspective is a National Film Board of Canada production, produced by Julian Biggs. The National Film Board of Canada presents Perspective. A Canadian view of Canada, its people, and the world in which they live. This week, The Barrier, Part 2. The second of 2 stories on the relationship between the worker and the boss, by George Salverson.
We'll call this the Universal Paper Company. There's no such company to our knowledge. We could have chosen any industry. This one is the fictional scene of a true story perspective told last week. From one side only. From the viewpoint of Nick Taylor, on the eve of his retirement.
Go ahead, buzz him.
Oh, Nick, you're all worked up because it's your last day.
Buzz him. Every time before, my tongue got stuck in my throat. I'd have something important to say, and he'd do all the talking.
The story of a silent barrier, holding back machines and organization, of two men who tried to penetrate that barrier.
Miss you badly, Nick.
Well, thanks, Fred. But I wanted to talk to you.
Of course, we've had a long association. Looking forward to a life of ease on that chicken farm?
Oh, sure. But...
Well, I suppose we'll have to learn to get along without you. One fortunate thing, though. Now your wife will have you all to herself.
Fred, never mind that stuff.
Something wrong, Nick?
Remember we once had some trouble on that #1 machine?
Oh, think nothing of it. We always have trouble there. Young Traveler has it well in hand.
Oh, he has?
Yes, clever young man, that. Good training.
Yeah.
He mentioned to me this morning, and when I suggested that we have the engineers from head office in, he said he'd tell them the problem. Make you feel better, Nick? Knowing that you leave the job in competent hands?
But 5 years before retirement age, Fred, I kind of felt...
Oh, you deserve it, Nick. Nobody deserves a break more than you do. Excuse me.
Well, tomorrow they're going to give me a banquet. Goodbye, you good and faithful servant. Loyal, devoted, true, and honest dog. Madge, I was an honest, ambitious young guy with guts. What happened to me?
Nick, what is it?
Montgomery. For 20 years, I never said what I wanted to say. I didn't fight back. I never lied to him. But I never told him the truth.
This is the story of the inner destruction of two men. Two men who, after 30 years of working together, still remained strangers to one another. One, Nick Taylor, self-made, risen from the ranks, on his last day at Universal Paper. As he tried to reach through the barrier, the story seemed to reveal one set of truths. The other, W.F. Fred Montgomery, newly promoted to power. On that last day, as he tried to reach down, the story was something else.
I'm sorry if I awakened you, Dad.
No, you didn't. It was a dream.
Oh? What sort of dream?
Oh, just nonsense. About Nick Taylor,
Nick Taylor?
the retiring superintendent.
Oh.
I suppose it's the long association. Nick was a tar boss down at the mill when I was assistant superintendent, like young Frank Traveler. And in the dream...
Well?
Oh, nonsense. You know, it's remarkable that you can get up after coming in at 5.
I wanted to talk to you.
Well, I'm sure you didn't get up after 2 hours in bed just to keep me company.
Oh, it's that Frank.
Which Frank?
How many Franks do you think I have?
Well, I don't keep track of you young men.
Oh, yes, you do. And you know perfectly well I'm talking about Frank Traveler.
Oh, the incoming superintendent. Brilliant young man with a great future in the paper business.
Don't talk about him as if he hadn't been under your eye for years.
Well, under your mother's eye, really.
Well, we sat up last night in his car, fighting like a pair of ill-bred adolescents.
How refreshing. Alicia, what is it?
How many years is this to go on? We're supposed to be married. When he has time. When his career is established. Well, it is established. And we aren't even engaged.
I see.
I know exactly what's on his mind. He's afraid.
Afraid?
Of you. He can't talk to you.
He can't talk. But haven't the Travelers and Montgomerys been friends for...
You're his boss.
Well?
And I'm the boss's daughter. He won't say so. But that's what it is. I'm furious with him. It's ridiculous. It's not as if he were an employee, like that Nick Taylor.
Well, if that's it, I'll have a talk with him.
I wish you would.
Although, there's a point there.
No, you're not going to make trouble.
No, I was just thinking of something at the plant. I've got to go now.
You will talk to Frank?
Yes.
Then meet me at the hotel for lunch. I want to know what happens.
Okay, sweetie. Lunch at the hotel. Anything for you. Morning, Nick. What's going on down there? Why the alarm whistle?
Morning, Fred. Trouble on number 1 machine.
Oh, it's number 1 again, eh? I'll tell you what the trouble is there. It's in the wet end.
Yeah.
Now, if we tear out that wet end... Did you know all about that, Nick?
Yeah.
It's your last day, Nick. Must have a talk later.
Yeah.
I've known that old bull of the woods for years, and all I ever get from him is yup, yup, yup.
I know.
I talk, and never a word comes back.
But you have to have the information.
Sure, Madge. Play the role, be the great leader, be right, be perfect, and without the information.
Pardon?
They can jump on me from the top and say just what they think. But down below, it's yup, yup, yup. They think this is the peak of the pyramid. Well, maybe it is. A peak in silent Darien. Madge, I've known Nick most of my life, and I've never known what he really thinks. Not since... Used to give you a real argument in those days.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Ellison called to say he's on his way up to see you.
Ellison? He'll talk, that's certain. Okay, send him in. Tell him to bring his knife.
Stop pacing, Nick. He'll see you as soon as Mr. Ellison leaves.
Spies now. He's got a man down in the plant poking his nose into everybody's job.
He's just trying to get information. He has a lot of new responsibilities.
Oh, sure. Breathing down everybody's neck, telling them how to do their job. Well, I'm going to tell him.
Oh, Nick.
20 years ago, I went to give him the lowdown on that same #1 machine. He did all the talking. Him. Spent 6 months down on the floor so he could know the business. Yeah. He did all the talking. He and all those bright young engineers from main office, they were the know-it-alls, not us who lived with the machines.
You're just upset because it's your last day. You got ahead all right.
Why? Because I learned to follow the books. Sure, you don't get the tonnage. People aren't satisfied, but you're always safe. You tell them what they want to hear. You say, yup, yup, yup. That's the way to get ahead.
Poor Nick.
My last day. Well, for once, I'm going to tell him what's on my mind.
So we know all about the eggshell stock, and the #1 machine's an antiquated piece of equipment anyway, Dick.
It must be more than a detail like that, Fred.
It's not a detail.
I realize you're under pressure, picking up the threads. But our customers are impatient, with reason.
We'll deliver, Dick. Don't worry about it.
I know that, Fred. That was a good move, getting young Frank Traveler promoted.
Oh, Frank, yes.
Nick Taylor wasn't the man for that job. It's a real improvement.
You think so?
I was quite pleased about it. Never understood a man like Nick trying to do that job myself.
I don't know. He followed me all the way up the ladder and without benefit of education or background.
Young Traveler is the type of man we need in this organization. I'm glad to see the end of Nick. And that was quite a wrinkle. Pensioning him off 5 years before his time as a special reward.
He's a rattling good paperman. That's how he's done his job.
Oh, granted. Granted.
He knows the mill. And he knows the men.
Oh, I grant you that, Fred.
I don't see why you compliment me for sidetracking this man. It wasn't my decision.
Oh, but it was, wasn't it?
Why do you say that?
When there was doubt, opinion was divided. It was your argument that decided the matter. A rough, gruff, outspoken, undiplomatic bear of a man.
When did I say those words?
Oh, not the words. The implication, Fred. How much better his assistant, Frank Traveler, could fit into the responsibility of the position.
Well, that's true, but it wasn't my decision.
Oh, come now, Fred. Between friends. After all, he's going to be your son-in-law. Oh, I fully appreciate the logic. Frank's the better man. Formal training, education, background.
There's not a word of truth in your insinuation, Ellison.
Don't be angry, Fred. We all know you wouldn't have done it if Frank weren't in every way better qualified.
What a wonderful convenience it is also to be my son-in-law. He won his promotion by his own merits.
Wasn't it you who got him his first position in the plant?
Yes. How was I to know he'd marry my daughter?
Look, this is your old friend, Dick Ellison. I mean no offense. So don't be sore. I'm all in favor. That's what I've been telling you.
But it's not true, I tell you. The boy's not even engaged to Alicia. Why, only this morning she told me...
Yes.
Oh, this is ridiculous, Dick. I'm sorry if I'm a little touchy. I didn't get much sleep last night.
That's all right, Fred. Wouldn't want your job for $1 million. Thanks, Fred. I'd better get back. Nick, how are you?
Okay, Dick.
Your last day, you lucky fellow. Out of the rat race at last. And your time's your own.
Yep.
See you at the big banquet tomorrow. You deserve a real send-off, Nick. Good luck to you.
Come in, Nick. Have I a lunch engagement? Well, cancel it. I'll have lunch with Nick today. And get Frank Traveler over here in 30 minutes. Exactly.
Well, Nick, did you tell him off?
I wanted to tell him what happened between us on number 1 machine 20 years ago. He thought I was talking about the trouble this morning. Always knows what you're thinking before you tell him. Always does all the talking. He invited me to lunch.
I think he was upset at something that Mr. Ellison said to him. Oh, good morning, Mr. Traveler.
Good morning, Madge.
See you in the office.
Mr. Montgomery wanted to see me?
Oh, yes. Will you go right in, please?
Good morning. I hear you wanted to see me.
Yes, come in. And close that door. Well.
Sir?
I hear you're afraid to talk to me. Are you going to be a closed door to me, like Nick Taylor?
A closed door?
And a fine state of mind you've got my daughter in, young fellow. She snarled at me all through breakfast.
Oh, Alicia?
Stop bumbling, boy. And don't stand there like a stick. Sit down. So this fight with Alicia has something to do with Nick Taylor, has it?
Oh.
Yes, oh. Haven't you been in and out of my home for years? Haven't I treated you like a son? What is there about my being your boss that stops you from talking to me? You've got to talk to me because I am the boss. I've got to know. How can I function if I don't know what I'm dealing with? Why can't you talk to me?
Well, it may be, sir, that you just weren't aware of the implications.
Implications?
I'm aware of the feeling of management against Nick Taylor.
Well?
Well, I have a great admiration for the man, for his knowledge of the plant, and for the respect he commands in the men.
Of course he does.
I'm uneasy. If it were to become known to Nick, to the plant, that your daughter and myself... Well, if Nick were to think being pensioned off this way...
You mean you're concerned about the feelings of Nick Taylor? You don't want him to think that he's being pushed out because of you?
No, sir.
You're so much like I was, Frank. Did anybody ever ask you if you really wanted to be a leader, to get ahead?
No, I suppose not.
Last night I had a very strange dream. I was a boy again, a little boy of 7. There was a little Negro boy. He had a jackknife. He hunted and fished. Strange that I should dream of him after all these decades.
That does seem...
But I did know that boy. He was real. His name was Jerry. There was a world of some sort. He was going to show me. They took it away. Curious? Yes, I suppose it is. Sometimes when I see those machines down there in trouble, I burn to get my hands on them. But you don't work with your hands. You spend your 6 months on the floor to get the feel of the business, pass through slated to lead. It's as though worlds opened up to you for a moment. Negro boy, little girl, Nick Taylor, and then closed behind you forever.
I don't understand all this about Nick Taylor.
I remember once, he was tower boss. I was superintendent. We'd had a crisis. A lot of dissatisfaction among the men. It occurred to me that we might talk it out together.
Yes, of course.
They came into my office, Nick among them. I said, let's talk it over. And there was a long silence. They looked at each other, at me, And do you know, I believe I was panic-stricken. I began to talk. I told him all the things we were going to do. After all, I'd been taught from boyhood that a leader must lead. I had to tell them. Only, I don't remember that they ever told me anything. And I'm the man that simply has to know.
Oh, I see. Yes, I understand now.
You do?
Yes, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my difficulty sooner.
I see. Marrying the boss's daughter and not wanting Nick to think...
If he did, he certainly would express himself freely. And considering the respect the men have for him, it might damage my authority in the mill.
Your authority?
As you say, I should have told you about my feelings. But when I saw you weren't aware of the possible repercussion when you decided to move Nick out...
I'm having lunch with Nick. I'll try to find out what he feels.
I wish you would, sir.
Yes. I'd like to find out for once what he really feels. Try a little of the red pepper, Nick.
Oh.
Not too much. It's really hot.
Yep.
I'm rather fond of this stuff myself. Proletarian taste, I guess.
Oh?
That's what my wife used to say. Seems only yesterday. You were a bright young lad down at the mill, tower boss.
Yeah. You were no graybeard either, Fred.
No, that's right. Odd, though. I always felt so much older. But of course you're older. You're retiring.
Yeah. Fred, remember I once wanted to talk to you? About that #1 machine?
You mean what we were discussing this morning?
No, when I was tower boss. I had a whole lot of ideas. Then the machine broke down and... You don't remember nothing about it?
No.
Well, a long time ago.
Yes. I remember you as a man of ideas even then, Nick.
Yep. Say, this pepper is hot, all right.
Yes.
Sure is.
We're going to start a new course in supervisory training. Everyone from the president down. We're going to get the entire supervisory staff together and work out some of our problems.
One big happy family.
Well, something like that. Like to give us any ideas, Nick?
Sure. Get a bright young expert from main office with all the problems on big sheets of paper. When the conference is over...
Yes.
I got no ideas. This pepper is too darn hot.
Well, you better wash it down with a little water.
Yeah.
Any problems, Madge?
Mr. Traveley would like to see you again as soon as possible.
Anything else?
A few phone calls. Oh, and right now in your office.
Madge, you're the perfect secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Completely impersonal in such a very personal way.
Am I?
Tell me, what do you think of Nick Taylor?
Nick Taylor? I'm sorry he's leaving.
So am I.
I tried to tell you your daughter's in your office.
My daughter, I completely forgot. Alicia. I'm sorry, darling. I promised to have lunch with you in the hotel.
Well, that's all right, Dad. I know you're under pressure these days.
I had lunch with Nick.
Nick Taylor?
Yes.
Well, after my spending an hour in the hotel lobby like a deserted woman, I hope at least you did talk to Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Well?
That's why I had lunch with Nick.
Oh?
I wanted to get to know him.
And left me standing around for an hour like a fool. I could have told you something about this peculiar man you're so fond of.
What?
Not only is he something of a barbarian, but his wife is a painful creature with social aspirations.
Oh, that's no concern of mine.
What else would you like to know? That he drinks? Not that I blame him. That he has a mistress? Not that I blame him for that either.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Alicia!
Don't you know who she is? Your secretary, Madge.
What?
Oh, it's well known in the mill.
Frank told you that?
Doesn't matter who told me. I'm sorry,
All right, my darling. You wanted bear tales? Here's a story that's going the rounds of the brass and is going to keep right on going until it hits the floor of the mill like a keg of dynamite.
What are you talking about?
They're saying that I railroaded Nick into retirement so that his job could go to my daughter's husband. That's what they're saying I did. How do you like that story?
Well, really, Dad, didn't you?
The story of a barrier. A wall of attitudes, traditions, defenses. And of two men for whom even the machines could never break the silence.
This week's Perspective was directed by Tom Farley. Written by George Salverson. Photography, Donald Wilder. Sound recording, Claude Pelletier. Editor, Tony Lower. Production assistant, Blanche Markle. Location manager, Hugh O'Connor. Sound editor, Brian Keene. Special sound, Joan Edward. Perspective is a National Film Board of Canada production, produced by Julian Biggs.